computer. Okay. This is a shir on Likutei Sichos, Chelek Chav Dalet, book 24, the second Sicha of Parshas Eikev. Interesting, we're getting closer to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and the topic tonight is going to address a little bit the relationship between the mitzvahs we do, the opposite of mitzvahs that sometimes, God forbid, we transgress, whether or not they cancel each other out, touches on judgment and so on. As we're within 6 weeks of Rosh Hashanah, perhaps it's time to start thinking about that. Okay, on the pasuk, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'ar kalim. On the pasuk in this week's parsha in Eikev that says, "Ki Hashem Elokeichem hu Elokei Elokim, shelo yisaf panim v'lo yikach shochad." Hashem, your God, is the God of gods, who doesn't yisaf panim. How do you translate yisaf panim? Does not favor and does not take bribes. Yisaf panim would be when somebody is given something undeserving, when Hashem overlooks. When you favor somebody, you kind of look the other way. You don't pay attention to the small things they may have done wrong. So Hashem does not look away, does not favor. Hashem is true, right? And Hashem does not take shochat. Shochat literally means bribery. So Rashi says, what does this mean? Lo yisaf panim, Hashem will not favor you and overlook im tifreku ulo, if you throw off his yoke. Throw off the yoke of God, God forbid. Hashem will not overlook that and make it, favor you as if nothing happened. Lo yikach shochad. He won't take bribery. Lefaiso b'mamon, says Rashi, that you can appease him with money. Usually, you did something not so good, you give it a couple of bucks and you smooth it over. Hashem, you can't give him money and smooth things over. It sounds a little funny to talk about money with Hashem, right? The Sikha will address that. So we have to understand, what is Rashi achieving? Rashi, when he comments, has to be telling us something that we wouldn't have known otherwise. What is Rashi telling us that we wouldn't have known when he says that he will not favor if you throw off his yoke? I mean, in other words, like this. He says, Hashem will not favor you if you throw off your yoke. As if, if you haven't thrown off the yoke of heaven, Hashem doesn't have to yisaf panim. Hashem doesn't have to favor you. You deserve goodness. When do we have to say Hashem will not favor you? Obviously, if you've done something wrong. So what does Rashi say? When won't he favor you? When you throw off his yoke. Obviously, it's not talking if you're listening to him. It's talking if you're not listening to him. Don't think he's going to overlook it. Usually he says, I love you guys. I'm going to overlook things. No. If you throw off his yoke, he's not going to overlook it. But why does Rashi have to tell her that? That seems to be obvious. So some of us will say, well, Rashi's coming on the heels of what it says in Birkat Kohanim. We learned that when the Kohanim bless the Jewish people, what do they say? Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Hashem should favor you and kind of overlook things. Favor you even if you're not deserving and give you shalom. So comes Rashi and says, hello. Hashem will overlook things, but that's only if you don't abandon his yoke. If you go to the point of throwing off his yoke, don't expect his grace. He will not. Yeah.
I'm just curious. Far-fetched it maybe, but I just want to. Does it mean like bribing? Does it mean like giving tzedakah?
Oh, we're gonna get there. There's bribing here. Giving tzedakah. Okay. Hang on for the journey. So basically, some commentaries say that Rashi is trying to say what it says that Hashem will favor you in the bracha of the Kohanim. You should know that here Hashem is telling you that if you throw off his yoke, he's not going to favor you. Okay, but still, that's not understood. Obviously, come on. We know from all the portion of Bechukais I already said. If you listen to the mitzvahs, beautiful brachas, being lo tishma'u li, if you don't listen, if you don't listen, all kinds of stuff. So we already know that Yisaf Panim, Hashem treats us favorably when we listen. If we don't listen, you can't expect the Yisaf Panim. So again, why does Rashi have to what's the big news Rashi's telling us? And also, when it says in the Birkat Kohanim, Yisaf Hashem Panav, Rashi says, we know what that means, that Hashem will favor us. Yichbosh ka'aso. He will quash his anger. Actually, you know what that means? Why does he have to quash his anger? If they're listening, why does he have to quash his anger? Actually, that means that even if they're angering him, the brachas of Kohanim, Yisa Hashem Panav, seems to be saying, even if they make him angry, he's going to accept them. So one second. So why here does the Torah say, Lo Yisa Panim? He's not going to favor them. if they throw off his yoke. 1 second. But in Birkat Kohanim, so there's two-pronged question. If that's obvious, why does Rashi have to tell us? And if, 1 second, maybe it's not obvious, so why there at Birkat Kohanim is Hashem going to conquer his anger here? Not. What's going on here? Paragraph 2. Also, we have to understand the money issue, the bribery issue. It says you can't give him. He's not going to take any bribe. That you should be able to appease him with money. Okay, if you want to use the word appease, to say you can't give him bribery to appease him, that makes sense. You know why? Like Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, known by his initials, the Ra'am, who's one of the main commentators on Rashi, explains, we understand that. What does it mean? What does bribery mean? Bribery means either to make somebody who's liable, to exonerate somebody who's liable, liftor et hachayav, lizakot et hachayav, which that's perverting justice. The guy's supposed to be culpable. The guy's supposed to be obligated. You'd say he's free, innocent. That's perversion. But if you give bribery, that may happen. Or what else does bribery come to do? Levater, to get rid of the punishment. Yeah, the guy did wrong. He's supposed to be punished. Give a couple of bucks, we'll wipe up the punishment. Now, Hashem, of course, will not make somebody who's chayav, who's culpable, who's guilty, make him innocent. What may happen is you may think that Hashem may forego, look, I know the guy is guilty, but I'm not going to punish him. So Rashi says, sorry, you can't appease Hashem like giving him bribery. He's not going to take away the punishment. He doesn't say he won't make the innocent, the guilty innocent. Obviously, we know he's not going to do that. But why does he add? So we understand the word, we can't appease him. If you deserve, somebody deserves a punishment, you can't appease him and he'll take away the punishment. But what's this mammon business? Where's the money business? Like, we know there's Bitcoin, but is there God coin? Like, what kind of coins can you pay God, so to speak, to influence him? Also, if Rashi's just saying that, what does it mean, shochad? Back up. The Ra'am, Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, asks this question. He says, what kind of money can you possibly talk? What Rashi says, you can't bribe Hashem to appease Hashem with money. What kind of money can we be talking about? Why doesn't Rashi say, he asks, if Rashi wants to talk about appeasing, why don't you say that Hashem will not accept a mitzvah to exonerate you from an avera? In other words, it may be a guy deserves a punishment, and he'll say, you know what, God, I'm going to do a big mitzvah now. So then you look the other way. He's a good guy. I'm not going to give him a punishment. That would fit bribery for Hashem, right? But not money. What kind of money? Also, we have to understand, why does Rashi bring the words in his heading, v'lo yikach shochad? The word shochad is what he's trying to explain, not v'lo yikach, he won't take. Right? That's not what he's trying to explain. So, paragraph 3. Let's understand, let's look at the other commentaries. We'll see on this question of the Ra'am, of the Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, there's several answers. We're going to go through several answers. One of them is from the Gur Ari, from the Maharal of Prague. The other is from a sefer called the Divrei David, who's known better by his Pirush on the Shulchan Aruch, the Taz, the Turei Zahav. The other one is the Siftei Chachamim, who we know him from the many Chumashim have the Siftei Chachamim that explains Rashi. Okay, so here we're going to quote 3 answers on this to explain this, shed light on this topic. Okay, what are the 3 answers? First answer is that when we talk about money here, we're talking about a sacrifice. What do you buy with? What kind of appeasement can you give to Hashem? What currency? We say Bitcoin. I was joking about Bitcoin. What's Hashem's currency? Sacrifices. Now, sacrifices cost money. So the pasuk is saying, don't think you can appease him by spending money on a good fat sacrifice, because zevach l'sha'im toiva, the sacrifice that the wicked person brings is an abomination. Hashem doesn't want it. If a guy doesn't come back to Hashem, if he's still a renegade, if he's still rebellious to Hashem, you can't just bring. It's not that you bring it that Hashem needs your lamb chops. Bring a nice succulent, steak, beef into Hashem. That doesn't do anything. Hashem wants to see that you left your sin and now you're humble and you understand that really what's happening to the animal should happen to you, and you're doing an atonement. You can't just appease God by bringing some kind of an animal that costs money. That's one answer. The other answer is, another suggested answer is, talking about appeasing Hashem with money means like truma. Anytime it says v'yikchu li truma, to build the Beis Hamikdash, take from me a truma, an offering. Hashem says it's for me. In other words, when you give something for the Mishkan, for the Beis Hamikdash, or so on, so then it's considered like you're giving it to God. So maybe you would think you're going to appease God, like you said, with money, with tzedakah, with giving something that don't. It's like, please donate to one of my favorite charities. If you go to a judge and you say, I gave money to one of your favorite charities, you could bribe him that way. You didn't have to give him money. You gave money to God through giving it to the Beis Hamikdash. No, it doesn't work. Or the other thing, what mammon could be is any mitzvah. Any mitzvah costs money. No, the first, number two is specifically the Beis Hamikdash, where it says v'yicholi truma, that Hashem calls the coffers of the Beis Hamikdash mine. The third option is maybe any tzedakah, any money that's given to Hashem's cause. Anything that's taxed, anything that's tax deductible. Sif 46 in Israel or in America, 5013C. That's it. It means you gave it to God. Maybe that's what it means. You can't bribe God with money by giving tzedakah. However, says the Rebbe, all these answers, they only answer the minor part of the question, which is, how could you talk about Hashem receiving money? So we could say, okay, you could talk conceptually, allegorically about Hashem receiving money when you talk about Hashem's causes receiving money. Okay. But the fact that there could even be the main question is still there. Why? Because the reason that a person could think that money could bribe is not like money that you give to a human being. When you give money to a human being, so the money itself has benefit to the person. The judge knows if he got a big amount of money, now he can go on a holiday and buy expensive tickets and stay in an expensive hotel. The money has a benefit for it. When you give Hashem money, it's not about the money. It's about the fact that you did a mitzvah, right? You took the money, you brought a korban, a sacrifice. Or you gave the money to the Beis Hamikdash. Or you spent money giving it to the poor people, which is one of Hashem's main agendas. But why talk about money if so? The money here is not about the money, it's just about the mitzvah. So say you can't, Rashi should have said, you can't give God shochad, you can't lefaiso, you can't appease him with a mitzvah. Who cares if the mitzvah was money or not? Especially according to this answer we gave that says that we're really talking about bringing a korban, bringing a sacrifice. Rashi just what? In the end of the day, we're saying that if you gave him, that you can't appease him with money, all the answers we said are either korban. So now that everyone says, why don't you just say you can't appease him with a korban? Why say money? Or a donation to the Beis Hamikdash. Also, but it's not about the money, it's about the donation to the Beis, it's about the mitzvah, giving the Beis Hamikdash, or tzedakah, it's about the mitzvah of tzedakah. So say, Ef shalafaiso bit tzedakah, not bit tzedakah, bit mitzvah. You can't bribe him with a mitzvah. Why say the word money? The money doesn't seem to have any meaning here when you talk about Hashem. Yes, if you did a mitzvah with the money, so it's the mitzvah, not the money. Also, according to this, there's something major missing, which is
it's money without intention. Isn't there a sin offering?
There is, but the word mammon, Rashi doesn't speak about that. Rashi says you can't appease him with money. He should have said you can't appease him with a mitzvah, you can't appease him with a korban. Also, if he says you can't appease him with money, if he means korban, so the main thing of a korban is teshuvah. So you should say you can't appease him if you bought a korban and did teshuvah. I'm not sure here what this paragraph says. Also, in the simple reading of the pasuk, how do you understand when it says that Hashem doesn't take bribery, that a korban can only work if you have teshuvah? I'm not sure this is what the Rebbe is saying. 1 second. Rashi I'm not sure this point here. Apologies. Also, we can't say that Rashi, when he says you can't appease him with money, is because money only works. He's using a language that works for people. people get influenced and bribed by money. So Rashi is saying you can't bribe Hashem. Is using the usual modem of bribery, which is money. Of course, for Hashem, there's no money, but he's using the way it is for people. But the Rebbe says, but even by people, there's other forms of shochad, not just money. Shochad dvarim. You can flatter somebody. You come and give somebody a nice compliment, tell the judge, wow, you're the greatest man in the world. You also got a problem. You've also flattered. That's also shochad. And also, the pasuk says shochad. Why does the pasuk speak about shochad, which usually is money? Why doesn't the pasuk go straight to the point? You can't v'lo yikach mitzvah, or will not take another word, but not the word that seems to imply money. Why does the pasuk? If you want to say that shochad is the usual, Rashi says money because that's the usual meaning of the word shochad. And then the pasuk goes back. The question goes back on the pasuk. Why does the pasuk use that language? What does that mean with Hashem? Shochad of money. So the explanation is like this. Paragraph 4. What Rashi means to say is exactly hinted at in his exact language. Rashi said he will not favor you if you tifreku ulo, if you throw off his yoke. It doesn't say if you don't listen to his mitzvahs or any of the other languages which in Parshat Bechukotai, the end of Vayikra, when it says if you don't listen to me, this and this will happen. There's many languages that im lo tishma'uli, im lo telchu, if you don't go in my path, if you don't listen to me, im telchu im ikeri. Here, Rashi doesn't use any of those descriptions about not listening to Hashem, about rebelliously. He uses a very interesting language. He uses a very radical language. If you tifreku ulo, those that speak Hebrew will understand. Lifrok all is to like throw off the yoke. It's like I don't want, it's not just I'm sorry, I'm not going to do what you want today. It's like I don't care about you. Oh, this is a very harsh expression. Here we're not talking about not doing mitzvahs. Just a guy who is lazy. Today's not doing a mitzvahs, or he's doing sins. In that case, you're right. Rashi said, "Yisa Hashem panav elecha." The Kohanim bless us. May Hashem accept you and favor you. As Rashi says, "Yisa Hashem panav." He should be kovesh ka'aso. May Hashem quash his anger, because you guys aren't like on a war path against God. Didn't do as many mitzvahs as should have done. Maybe he did some sins. Let Hashem overcome that. Let him quash his anger. Yisa Hashem panav. Hashem should have you find favor in his eyes. Favor you even though you don't deserve it. Okay. That's the Birkat Kohanim. Here, where it says Asher lo yisapanim, that Hashem won't favor you. It's not talking about when there's just a generic or a regular kind of during life. We're not doing the mitzvahs, or even worse, we're transgressing on some level. Here, we're talking about a full-blown defiance, prikasel, throwing off the yoke, right? Somebody who's totally defiant of Hashem, God forbid. He takes himself away from being an Eved Hashem, from being a servant of Hashem, and he feels, what the word frei comes from? There's a word in Yiddish we say when somebody is irreligious, frei, free. What does it mean to be free? A Jew needs to feel that he has a mission to serve Hashem. To throw off the yoke of heaven means he was free from all that stuff. He can do whatever he wants. I can do whatever my heart desires. Fine. And nobody's going to tell me what to do. God, mix out of my life. I'm going to do what I want. So about that, the pasuk says, it doesn't work, my buddy. Lo yisapanim. Shem will not look the other way. He's gonna go with you bidiktuk. It's not like, he doesn't care. He's busy with other stuff. He's busy running the world. Who should win? The Democrats, Republicans, Israel. Don't worry. No. Lo yisapanim. If you act in this way, you're trying, you're kind of in with the program, but you fall here, you don't do there. Birkat Kohanim is the blessing is Yisa Hashem panav, but lo yisapanim. And Rashi has to say that. Where does Rashi get this from? That here we're talking about a real radical defiance, because the parsha earlier on says like this: "V'ata Yisrael, you and now my people of Israel," says Moshe Rabbeinu. Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mimach. What does Hashem your God ask for you? Ki im liyira, only to fear Him, revere Him, be sensitive to Him. Rashi says, even though you did all this negative stuff that we have just told you in your history over 40 years, you guys did some pretty negative stuff. Hashem still loves you. His mercy is on you. And everything that you sinned before him, he's not asking you for anything. He's not asking you for major, somersaults. He's asking just going onwards, you should fear Hashem. And therefore, when Rashi says, in extension to this, Hashem, remember, Hashem is asking you to fear him. Ma Hashem, what does Hashem want? He's not asking you to bury yourself because of the stuff you've done in the past. Li'irah, from now on, you should fear Hashem. And then it continues, Hashem lo yisapanim. Hashem will not favor you if you don't act towards him accordingly. In other words, this is, if you act the opposite of li'irah, if you act, what does li'irah mean? Li'irah really means to fear, but it's not to fear that I'm scared of God's mighty arm. Li'irah is such a great person. I'll give you an example. When somebody goes in front of a king, he gets dressed up. Is he scared the king's going to beat him if he doesn't get dressed up? No, but there's a certain reverence, there's a certain respect. That's a feeling of yirah, a respect, a sensitivity. I know Hashem doesn't want it. I'm not going to do it. So, what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is not caring at all about God. Couldn't give two hoots. Prikato. So about that's lo yisapanim. So now we understand that lo yisapanim, Rashi gives a radical example, because about the other cases when it's mediocre, Hashem says, come on, even give a blessing, Yisa Hashem panav. Hashem will look the other way, he'll favor you. That's not a reason we shouldn't try our best, of course. But it's a bracha that, I guess like a relation with a kid, you're not trying. Some people think Hashem's looking out, God forbid, to pounce on you. The moment you found you're doing something not right, boom, got you. Not at all. Hashem is looking to favor you, your beloved son. We're beloved children to Hashem. But don't make the mistake of thinking, okay, I can just can't throw off his yoke. Okay. So now we understand the first part of Rashi. Now let's continue. Talk about shochat. Now we'll understand. We suggested, why doesn't Rashi just say, not talk about not giving bribery of money? Why doesn't it just say you can't bribe him by doing another mitzvah? Now we know why Rashi can't say you can't bribe him by doing mitzvahs. Is this guy doing mitzvahs? The guy who parakol, he's defiant of God. He throws off the yoke. You think he's doing mitzvahs to convince Hashem to treat him well? He's not doing mitzvahs, right? If we're talking about a guy who's not doing any mitzvahs, this is a continuation. Don't worry, Hashem will not look the other way if you define, you throw off his yoke, and you can't buy him with what? With mitzvahs? We're talking to a guy who's not doing mitzvahs. With money. So what's money? So Rashi has to find something which maybe a person, there may be some kind of an inkling to think that even without doing mitzvahs, you could somehow get some of a piyus, you could somehow appease or create an atonement, even if you're not doing any mitzvahs, even if you're defiant, maybe there's some catch where you could get God to give you a shortcut. How could that be? Money. What? Why would we think that money can be an atonement? We know money is very powerful. People like money, but for God, why should it play any role with God? Oh, so we know that when it says that when somebody is killed, okay, if you find a dead body and you have to look who kills him, you have to find who's responsible. Don't take money, Rashi says. Kofer means don't take money. You can't let somebody off the hook for murder if he pays money. Similarly, a bull that kills somebody, a goring bull that kills somebody, it says, V'natan pidyon nafsho. The person has to give the atonement, the pidyon, the redeeming of his life. What does that mean? It means that that giving money has some kind of an attribute where it is instead of life. One second, how does this work? Besides for the fact, so there's one aspect of money where when you give somebody money as a bribe, the receiver becomes bribed. Why? Because now he can use the money. That's not shaykh Hashem. But there's something else where when somebody gives money, the person who's giving the money in a way has redeemed his own life. And instead of giving himself to be killed, could be he can give his money, and in that way, when his money is taken, maybe he will be considered like he's giving his life. Like Rashi gives an opinion. Here's the scenario: when the bull kills somebody has an ox who was warned. He's a goring bull. He should have been watched. He went and killed a person. The Torah says, "V'natan pidyon nafsho." He has to give the pidyon, the redeeming of his soul. What money do we have to give? Now, he didn't kill the person, so he's not killed. The owner of the ox is not killed because the ox killed somebody else. But he has responsibility here. He has to pay pidyon nafsho, the redemption of his life. Whose life? So the simple understanding is the life of the guy who was killed. How do you pay for a life? You figure out how much he would have been sold for, how much the value, how much he can't work, and all that. In a similar way, like today, they evaluate, what the value would be, and insurance-wise, and so on. And you have to give that to the family. But that's a pidyon. You have to kind of redeem what you did, at least with money. But there's another opinion which Rashi brings from the Gemara that says pidyon nafsho. The guy who owns the ox has to give his value, because he should really, in a way, be killed. His possession killed someone else, but he's not going to be killed. He has to give his value. So there is an aspect where you can give money, and really it's almost like you gave your life. Interesting. If you want to understand why money and life are intertwined, money is not just money. The Alter Rebbe says, you know why tzedakah is such an incredible mitzvah? Yeah, you know why it's such an incredible mitzvah? This is taken from the earlier parts of Tanya, in the Perek Lamed Zayin of the first book of Tanya. But why is it such an incredible mitzvah? What can you do with money? With money, you can buy life. What do you mean buy life? You buy food. And by the way, we all know people that have more money can pay for a better quality of life. Today, healthy food costs more. We see in the lower strata of society more obesity. They can't afford. They buy the junk food. They buy higher fat food to get better medical care. You'll be able to afford it. Money can buy aspects of life preservation. Not even talking about a kidnapped person. I'm just talking about the ability to buy life-giving additions based on your money. So when you're giving money to tzedakah, you're giving your life in a way. That's why it's such an incredible mitzvah. The Alter Rebbe also says there, how do you make money? When you put on tefillin, you're using your hand, your head. You make money, use everything. Your head, your hand, you run, everything's part of it. To make a buck, it really takes effort. Everything's part of it. Some people use their fingers with their head. But okay. So money has a very deep connection to life. So that's why there could be a thought. You could give money. If you give enough money, even if you're defiant of God, but hey, you know what, God, I'm not listening to your mitzvahs. I'm not interested. But you know what? Here's a big donation. Let that be enough. Let that be atone for everything. So he says, no. So Rashi says, no. The pasuk says, God doesn't take shochad, doesn't take bribery. You can't appease him with money. Of course, we don't mean to say that you can't buy God with money. Obviously, he doesn't need money. We don't have to say that. God forbid. Of course, we know he can't buy God's, time or attention or appeasement with money. But what we're talking about is, don't think that you can somehow become elevated in Hashem's status because you've given your money. If you're a porek all, if you're not ready to surrender to Hashem, if you want to be a defiant guy, do whatever that. Sorry, whatever you want. No, the money's not going to work. It's not going to be a kofar nafsho. Money only works if you're giving yourself, if you're surrendering to Hashem, if you're lo yisapanim, if you're a porek all, if you throw off the yoke of heaven, you can't appease God with money. Pasuk says that Hashem doesn't take this kind of kofar. Unless, again, it comes together with a surrender, with his dedication to Hashem. And then, if a person comes with a meaningful turn towards Hashem, then, of course, money works amazingly. Tzedakah. Sure. Go ahead.
My mind, yes.
Go ahead.
And you said that
if he's correct all, הוא לא יישא פנים.
Yeah.
But, okay, now he's not correct all.
So now Hashem will turn to him.
So, there is a fact. Somehow, about his donation. If it's like...
One second, there's two ways. No, we're saying there's two ways of giving donation.
We say what will not happen if it is like that.
No, we're saying two ways of giving donation. We're saying if somebody comes and thinks he can buy his innocence with money, not that he thinks Hashem needs his money, but he thinks he can kind of, instead of accepting Hashem's yoke, he's got enough money. He says, I'll give enough money that I can do whatever I want. No, it doesn't work.
It's already almost poreko.
That's poreko. Exactly. Giving money with the notion of poreko, 100%. That's what we're saying here. Don't think you can, the Rebbe is explaining, why would I think that money has some power? Because it does have certain amounts. In some places, we do consider it kofer nafsho. We do consider it somehow as a, yeah. No, so now we qualify. When is it save you from death? It has to be together with a commitment to Hashem, with a surrender to Hashem, not with a defiance. If you're in the stage of pirikato, Hashem won't think, and don't think money can help you. According to this, we'll understand why the pasuk emphasizes, and Rashi takes also the word lo yikach shochad. He will not take bribery. Why do we need those words? Because this is not about this. Why doesn't Hashem accept this kind of money? Because it's not about the Nesinas, Moment is Azach, was hot in sich von dem Teuchen. Nesinas Atzmich, an Aschkabal Sel. Now, the concern is, was seine Kapelle können, es ist mit ihm nicht verbeiten. Falls da Gosche Posik nicht in dem Schör sein, in Nesinas am Moment, und dem nicht annehmen, wenn als Pesach, der Posik ist meine Durchschrift. What we're trying to say is that the money in itself does have power. In other words, if used in the right way, it could be an atonement for him. The thing is, lo yikach, Hashem won't take it from him because he's not giving it in a state of connection to Hashem. He's giving it in a state of defiance of Hashem. He thinks the money will work independent of him being connected to Hashem, being committed to Hashem, being surrendering to Hashem. No, it doesn't work. I admit I'm a little weak on this last paragraph, but I think the point is understood.
Give them cash them out.
Let's look at the next thing, because I think we're gonna like this. We're gonna talk a little bit about tshuva, I think. Paragraph 6. Everything we do, especially in Torah mitzvahs, is always b'hashgacha pratit, divine providence. So we see that this concept of Hashem not favoring or not taking bribe, it's actually in the end of which parak in Pirkei Avot? 4th parak, which many people who read, those that read Pirkei Avot the whole summer, look, a lot of times, in some years, it comes out on Parshat Eikev, parak 4. This year we're reading 5 on Parshat Eikev. But some years it comes out that we're reading Parshat 4. Right. So we see that according to the way Rashi learned this concept, we'll understand why there's a Mishnah if it's an open pasuk. First of all, I just want to point out something interesting that the Rebbe points out in a footnote. We say Pirkei Avot when? Everybody says a Pesach, between Pesach and Shavuos. Yesh Noagim, it's brought in the summer, of a custom say the whole summer. The Rebbe brings that in the Tur, Rabbi Amram Gaon just brings it as a standard Shabbos afternoon thing. Summer, winter. Some people say it all year. It's not a common custom, but there is an origin for such a custom. But anyway, we say it. Everybody says it between Pesach and Shavuos. Many say it the whole summer. Many Chabad say it the whole summer. So many times this is the same week. But regardless, there's a question here. Pirkei Avot is coming to tell us something new, not to repeat psukim. So in the Torah, the pasuk says, so what is the Pirkei Avot here adding? It seems to be just a repetition of the pasuk we read. We say, blessed is Hashem, that there isn't before him masopanim, Hashem doesn't favor. Hashem doesn't take any bribery. That seems to be just a repetition of the pasuk. What's added here? The added value of the Mishnah. So the difference is like this. That in Torah it says, This comes as a continuation, right, of what we quoted. Now, you Jewish people, what is Hashem asking you? Which means that the lo yikach shochad, when it says Hashem won't take bribery, it comes as a continuation to the general concept of accepting the yoke of heaven. What does Hashem want from you? Hashem wants you to fear him, which means to accept his yoke. And then it says, but if you don't, lo yisapanim, if you throw off his yoke, he's not going to accept it. V'lo yikach shochad, and don't think you can give a bribe of money if you throw off his yoke. Yeah. However, what does it mean in the Mishnah? In the Mishnah is talking a higher level. The pasuk is talking very basic. Don't think God will favor you if you are defiant, if you throw off his yoke. Don't think you can give money, and if you're defiant of Hashem, it will help you. It won't. But the Mishnah is talking mili da chasiduta. Pirkei Avot is supposed to be lifnim mishurat adin, things that are beyond the letter of the law. We're not talking in Pirkei Avot to defiant people. So why do we have to tell them lo yikach shochad? What does it mean lo yisapanim in the Pirkei Avot that Hashem won't favor you? What if you porek all? The Pirkei Avot's not talking to people that are porek all, that are throwing off the yoke. So what does it mean there? He says like this. In the Mishnah, we have to learn that it's talking about something much greater and deeper. It's telling us that it's talking to somebody who does keep Torah mitzvahs. It's telling him a deeper level in Mili Chassiduta, something even deeper than the regular, which is what? So the Rambam learns in the Pirush of Mishnayos, in his explanation of the Mishnayos, that Hashem does not take bribe. What does it mean? Hatovot. Hashem will not be bribed by the good things that you do. In other words, if somebody does 1,000 good things and one bad thing, Hashem will not forgive you for that sin because of the great tovot, the great many good things you did. And it's not like he's going to take off 1,000th. He'll take off one good deed of the 1,000th, right? And say, okay, I'll take this off and I won't punish you. No. He'll punish you for the bad and he'll give you reward for all the good. No shochad. There's no bribing and saying, oh, I'll take a mitzvah. Different currency. Different currency. And it's just like lo yisapanim. And this is also lo yisapanim. Hashem won't favor somebody. What does it mean won't favor somebody? Look what the Rambam says. Even somebody great, Hashem will say, I'm not going to pay attention. And no, somebody great like Moshe Rabbeinu is punished for a small thing that he does. Similarly, Esav, Harasha, generally Esav is wicked. He did kibud avayim, he honored his parents. Hashem said, I'm not going to wipe it away, the good thing he did, because he did many bad things. Two separate things. I'll give him reward for the good thing. And the Nebuchadnezzar had kavod for Hashem in that story where he ran 3 steps for Hashem. He got rewarded with 3 generations of kingship. He was Moshe Bekiba. He was leader of the that time the civilized world for 3 generations because he walked 3 steps for Hashem. He did so many bad things. One doesn't cancel out the other. This is what he says. I don't favor. I judge every act according to the way it needs to be responded to. In other words, the cheshbon, the counting of mitzvahs and averos, is not a way that you can make business or currency exchange between mitzvahs and averos. And you can take, well, 1 second, we'll wipe off the reward of one mitzvah, and in this way we'll take off the sin for one avera. Every mitzvah and every avera as its consequence, either a punishment or a reward. Why is this? So let's understand. The Rabbi says we can understand what's the rationale behind this. We understand that that's what we're saying. What's the rationale? Listen to the rationale. The whole concept of mitzvahs and averas are not just in the effect they have on the person who does them, but the concept, the geder, the whole classification of a mitzvah. What is a mitzvah? Doing what Hashem wants. What is an avera? Violating what Hashem wants. Not doing what Hashem didn't want. And therefore, every mitzvah and avera is its own energy. In other words, if I would just look, in a business, I'll give just a little vart where I get this mashal from. Somebody once complained to the Rebbe that he's got a lot of troubles in his life. The Rebbe said, 1 second, but you have a lot of good things in your life. Yeah, but he has a lot of troubles. The Rebbe said, just take the example from a business. Imagine a businessman has 100 brands of shoes, okay? And maybe 10 of them aren't selling well. 90 are selling well. So he if he focuses on the 10 that's not selling, well, so he'll keep complaining. Oh, they're not, I'm losing money on them. Yeah, but 1 second. Take your whole stock. We'll see. You started off the year this way. You ended off the year, you made money. Don't look at each individual shoe. So imagine if mitzvah, so the Rebbe was giving advice to somebody, look at your life. Yes, you have things that you don't like, but a businessman doesn't look at that. He looks at the totality. Generally, your life is better now than it was at the beginning of the year. Good things happen more than bad things. Okay, say thank you, Hashem. Don't focus on the negative. If mitzvahs were just for what they do for us, so we could say, you know what? Let's say in the end, Hashem, just take the mitzvahs, the averos, make a plus, minus. In the end, I'm up. My stock portfolio, so to speak, is either up or down, and don't. But it's not that way. Every mitzvah is a connection to Hashem. Every avera is violating that connection. It's about what I did in heaven. I can't just say over there, make a mishmash about my reward. But that maybe I could say, just in Yiddish, there's a saying, "Rechen arab," calculated off my account. Oh, I took some money from the till. Okay, an advanced system. Take it off my account. A VAT system. But here we're saying, no, every mitzvah is a connection with Hashem. Every avera is a violation of that connection, is an offense to Hashem. Each one stands on its own. It's not just a mishmash. Each one has its own importance. However, in this itself, there's two aspects. There's the aspect Hashem doesn't favor, and Hashem doesn't take bribes. What's the difference between the two? We talk about favoring. Favoring means that, that guy is so good. He's such a nice guy. I'm going to overlook his trouble. In other words, the person, when I favor somebody and overlook his sin, it's because he's such a great guy. Shochad, bribery, is he gave something so big. Oh, when I want to overlook something, because what? Because the guy gave such a big amount of money. Let me look the other way. Not because he's a great guy. So there's the same thing. It's a perversion of justice. It's not doing justice. But one is because of the guy, because the person involved, the persona. One is because of what was given. So we could say that this is also on that similarly in the way they affect the judge. When we talk about favoring masopanim, what does it do? What kind of chemistry does it create? What happens is the judge now sees the person. He doesn't see the person as being sinful, as the bad act having diminished him. You know what? He's such a good guy. Okay, yeah, he stole a little, but that doesn't diminish him in my eyes. I'm gonna look the other way. Shochad. What happens when somebody gives shochad? He gives some money to the judge. What he did isn't so terrible. He still doesn't think the person is good. But the shochad, okay, you know what? It's not so terrible what he did. Starts here, it doesn't start with the person, it starts with, it kind of diminishes the potency or the negativity of the action. And that's what the Mishnah says. The person's connection with Hashem doesn't become, you can't smooth out a sin against an Avera, or you can't smooth out a mitzvah against an Avera. And the Avera, the sin, doesn't get wiped out because you did a mitzvah. Everything counts.
I think it's also in the ways. It's continuation. It's not like something finished.
In other words, the person, just 1 second, I just want to, the connection of the Jew to Hashem is such that Hashem will not overlook. Hashem will not say the relationship is good because you did a mitzvah, and now, you know what? You're a good guy. Hey, you did something wrong, I'll overlook it. And on the other hand, also the same thing, if a person does a mitzvah, Hashem doesn't say, okay, you know what? The Avera wasn't so bad. Everything counts. So both aspects. Rabbi is pointing out the nuanced aspect. Both, you won't favor the person, and he won't be swayed about diminishing the negativity of the deed to the person and the deed. According to this, we'll also understand what the Medrash says, that teshuvah is actually like bribing, returning to Hashem, repenting, returning to Hashem is like bribery. Why? The Medrash says, Atan notel shochad min harashaim ba'olam hazeh. God, you do take shochad, you do take bribery from the wicked people in this world. You know what you take? Teshuvah, return, when they come back to you and say, God, sorry, I want to come back. Ma'asim tovim, good deeds, utfilah, and prayer. And the Medrash finishes, Asut tfilah utshuvah, if they prayed and they return to Hashem, then Hashem does accept them as if he's taking a bribe. Why? Because the achievement, what teshuvah does, is unimaginably, ein aroch, incomparably higher than doing a mitzvah. Teshuvah is a leap of return to Hashem, where Hashem, it's higher than mitzvahs. In other words, the fact that Hashem gives us an opportunity to return to Him, when it comes from the heart, it comes from a deep feeling of attachment to Hashem, the desire to just, the thirst one has to Hashem, he wants to jump back up to Hashem, that's higher than the individual mitzvah, the individual connection that a person had violated when he didn't do the mitzvah. That teshuvah allows Hashem to overlook. First, he says the person, wow, great person. He overlooks the bad things he did. Also, the bad deed now becomes transformed. As we know, that our sages tell us, when a person truly comes back to Hashem, the zidonot, the things he did willingly, become shkagot, become like mistakes. More than that, the things that he did willingly, the rebelliousness against Hashem, if he comes back to Hashem and does tshuva, they become like zachiot, they become like mitzvahs, like merits. Not just like merits, but like zachiot mamash, like real merits. So there's many levels of teshuvah and how this works. But when we say lo yikach shochad, Hashem doesn't take an aver against the mitzvah, and he won't overlook things, and he won't say, oh, he's a good guy, therefore I'll overlook it. That's true. But there is a way to come back to Hashem and be forgiven, and that's teshuvah. And then Hashem does look at the person in a different way, and doesn't look at him as a sinner. Now looks at him as a cleansed person, and looks even at the deeds that were done. Hashem looks at them in a different manner, because ultimately, the way there's a quote here from Tanya, but ultimately the Tanya explains, when a person comes back to Hashem, everything he did really is part of that journey, and the thirst he has for Hashem is created by the negativity that he generated through the sin. So if that thirst makes his connection to Hashem more passionate, so really that's part of his journey, so it gets transformed into good. So here we have a very, very powerful look at the fact that I think a few takeaways there, very important. First of all, I would say most people are in the realm of not rebelling against God. They may not be doing as much as they could, and sometimes they may be even violating certain things, but for that, we say Hashem is merciful, and the Birkat Kohanim is a prayer to Hashem. May Hashem favor us and find us favorable, even if there's some things that may anger him. But we have to understand that doesn't mean to say let din v'let dayan, there's no judgment and it's a free for all, and a person can therefore just say that willingly and defiantly, and that's it, I'm free of all this thing, I couldn't care. No, Hashem doesn't think. And don't think that you can come with some money and not care about God, but your money can buy it. Money only works with God if it comes with your heart, if it comes with a sense of connection to Hashem. And after all said and done, there's always a way to come back to Hashem in a way where Hashem will accept us favorably, and that's teshuvah. Thank you.